not long ago I was out there in the world trying my hand at the whole online dating thing. I never struggled in that department, which I guess is a good thing, but I always liked the idea of connecting with someone on the internet. At the time, I was only meeting girls either at work or at the bar, and I wanted to branch out and see if I was able to meet someone different. I can't remember if I was on Tinder or another one of those dating apps, but the girl I met was named Scarlett. I thought the name was pretty cool, and she was beautiful. With all the catfishing and fake profiles out there, I was convinced that Scarlett had to be fake. I proceeded carefully and made some small talk for a while, and it became clear that this was a real person, and I immediately set up a date. I went right to dinner and drinks because that's just what I know best, but she had other ideas. Since I was trying to get more out of my comfort zone, I was open to just about anything, and she asked if I was familiar with this forest that is near my hometown. The forest is huge and has a trail that actually extends throughout 3 states. At least I think it's 3 states. I agreed to have the first date at the park. I got a fresh haircut and planned a picnic for us at this park and forest, and since summer was now over, this was in the middle of the week and we didn't plan on seeing very many people there. When the day arrived, I picked her up downtown outside of the building where she said she lived. We made the 45-minute drive to the forest, and just as we thought, when we pulled into the lot, there was only one car there. I was excited to basically have the entire place to ourselves, not that people would have made a difference since this place was so huge. And onto the side of the parking lot was a beautiful overview of a scenic area. I held her hand as we continued walking towards the view. And that's when I surprised her with the picnic. She was excited and seemed genuinely happy. There was nothing extravagant, just some sandwiches and chips, and we ate, sat on the blanket that I brought, and just talked for a while. It was nice to have a date that wasn't at a bar or somewhere loud. When we finally packed everything up, and I asked if she wanted to explore some of the trails. She smiled, looked around, and then said, "Actually, I have a better idea, but you can't judge me." I was intrigued and played along with her. She looked down and in a sort of shy and almost tentative voice, she said, "Let's play hide and seek." It was a weird suggestion, and I was not expecting that to come out when she said she had an idea. She started to hit my arm in a playful way and said, "Come on, it'll be fun. Just you and I out here in the woods, hiding." Now, as I write this, I realized how weird this sounds, but at the moment, the way she was talking, it kind of seemed fun and playful, and I can honestly say I wasn't really thinking with my head, if that makes sense. I agreed to play, and she got even more excited. She told me to hide first and that she would count to 30. I didn't want to run deep into the woods, especially because I had no idea where I was going. We were sitting maybe 40 feet away from one of the trails, so I decided to hide behind a tree right on the side of the trailhead. It wasn't a good spot, but I thought that we were doing some cute game of hide and seek, so I didn't try very hard. I heard her say 30, and she started making her way towards me. She saw me right away. She started yelling at me in a playful way, of course, and she begged me to take it seriously and hide somewhere good. She could see that I was skeptical. She decided to implement a rule that if she couldn't find me in 20 minutes, we would head back to the trailhead, and I was reluctant, but I agreed. I ran into the woods and tried to find a spot to hide. Now, this is going to sound weird, but there weren't a ton of spots to hide unless you went off the path, which I didn't want to do. I was jogging deeper into the woods, and I found some thicker trees that I thought could serve as some decent cover. I positioned myself behind the trees and started my timer on my phone. While I was leaning against the tree, I felt something cold touch the back of my neck. I didn't have a chance to react before I heard some low voice say, "Empty your pockets. Slowly put your wallet, keys, and phone on the ground in front of you. Don't look back, and don't try anything heroic, unless you want me to use this cold steel I got placed in the back of your neck." And I did what he said. I could feel him reach in front of me and grab the stuff, but I had my eyes closed. Whatever he had on my neck, he pushed in harder and said, "Now I want you to count to 1,000 before you move again. If you don't, your night is going to get a lot worse." I could hear him stepping away. I didn't care though. I still counted all the way to 1,000 out of complete fear. And when I hit 1,000 seconds, I turned around and sprinted out of the forest. I couldn't find Scarlett anywhere, and I started to fear the worst. Even though he stole my keys, he didn't steal my car, which I thought was a victory even though I couldn't drive it without the key. And I remembered not far from the parking lot was a gas station. I decided to run all the way to the gas station and have them call the police. I gave the cops all the information, and I told them that I feared something may have happened to Scarlett. After that investigation, it was like she just disappeared from the earth. Her dating profile had been deleted, and nobody ever reported seeing her. The police thought that she may have been involved with the person who robbed me, since nobody with the name of Scarlett was ever reported missing by anybody except me. You ever think something like this can happen to you? I just hope that she's okay. But knowing that she's involved, I just also hope that she never hurts anyone else again.
Hey guys, thanks so much for all the support. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please feel free to do so. Dating is hard. It doesn't matter if you are a male or a female. It's always hard when you try to engage in dating, and it was just too hard for me. It's not because I'm an unattractive person or anything. Instead, I don't socialize much. Whenever I'm facing a woman, I just don't know what to talk to them about. And for that reason, most people often think of me as a rude person and start avoiding me. Okay, so one day I was just thinking about the solution to my problem, about how I should date when I can't even talk to any of them, and called my friend Neon. He suggested that I should try talking to them through social media or a dating app, but I did not know how to approach a random stranger on social media. It just felt awkward to me. So I searched on Google for dating apps and installed the first one that popped up, which was Bumble. After installing the app, I opened it and started going through it. As I was swiping, I did not get a match for a few minutes, so I closed it, thinking it was a bad choice to depend on an app for dating. I'm a gamer, so after putting my phone down, I went to play games on my computer and spent a few hours playing. I looked to rest in between and decided to check my phone and inadvertently opened the Bumble app, only to find that I had a match with a Latina girl, Maria. She was the one to initiate the conversation between us with a simple hello, and then asked how I was doing. I did not find it difficult to answer, so I just replied as I do with any of my guy friends if they would ask me such questions. She then started asking about my hobbies, etc., which I surprisingly liked. It felt good to talk to a girl. I had never once in my life had an actual proper conversation with a female besides my mom, so it felt like quite a new and refreshing experience to me, and I was loving it. After a few days of talking, she asked me if I wanted to meet up for a date. Even though I was hesitant, we still agreed to meet at a little cafe for an evening date. I dressed up in casual attire the next day and went to the cafe for our date. She had already told me what she would be wearing, so I recognized her immediately, sitting in a yellow dress in the corner, wearing a ponytail. She looked prettier than how she looked in her pictures. I approached, and after a normal greeting, sat across the table. We started with a light conversation, and I was still feeling a bit nervous and awkward, but she started talking in a way that made me comfortable, and before you know it, we were chatting like we had known each other for years. About an hour or two passed by, and we decided to move our date to a restaurant for a dinner. She took out her phone and searched for a nearby restaurant, and then we went to the one she chose. As we ordered our meals, we started chatting again. The conversation we were having was so good that we did not notice how the time just went by and 2 hours had passed. Still, neither of us was really ready to call it a night. Anyway, we decided to order some dessert after the meal and have some drinks while we chit-chat. While we were having a nice conversation, she excused herself, saying she needed to use the restroom. I started waiting for her and using my phone in the meantime, but when she did not come back even after half an hour, I got worried and asked one of the female staff to check on her. As I was talking to the staff, she came back and apologized for being late, and when I asked her what took her so long, she said it was her menstruation. She did not have a sanitary pad with her, so she was asking someone for help, and that was why she was so late. Even though she was talking casually about this because it's a natural thing that happens with a woman, I was still feeling embarrassed by it. After that, we decided to call it a day, and I asked if I should drive her home, which she agreed upon. So as we were driving back, we saw a man putting a woman inside a black car and started driving off. It sounds normal, right? But no, it didn't look normal to me. I felt like something was wrong over there because the female looked too drunk to even stand on her own. I wanted to do something, but I had Maria with me and I felt obligated to safely drop her at her apartment. What are you thinking? Follow that damn car. As she said that, I looked at her with surprise, but the moment I saw concern and fear in her eyes for that girl, I followed her advice. We quietly followed that car as it drove out of the town, and I made sure to maintain a safe distance from it so that the man does not notice that he was being followed. As the car reached a place that was surrounded by woods, he stopped the car and stepped out of it. I guess he was out of gas or something, because he checked the car and kicked it in frustration. Then he called someone through his phone, and about 15 or 20 minutes later, another car came and picked them up. Surprisingly, Maria was recording all of this on her phone. I did not question it because we might need it later. So we followed the car and it stopped in front of a huge house. The house was in an abandoned area, which doesn't make sense to either of us. Why would a guy take a drunk girl to a secluded place? But we still thought we should wait to see if he is dropping off the girl at her house. As we waited there, an hour passed, and those men still did not come out of the house, and I did not have the patience to wait anymore. So Maria suggested that we call 911, explain the situation, and let's see what they do. And that was exactly what we did. Officers came and started searching the house. Two men with huge builds came out and started threatening the officers to leave. Within minutes, the matter got out of hand, and they had to call backup for help. After searching the place, 13 young girls and 7 boys were found, and it turns out there was an entire legal business of human trafficking going on there. Those people used to kidnap girls and boys who were either walking home late or coming out late drunk from a party, or some similar situations, and then take them back to this place. After that, they would be exploited for smuggling, sexual exploitation, or sell them to forced prostitution, etc. I would never be able to forget this date. As I dropped her in front of her apartment building, she said before going inside, "Trust me, I was thinking the same thing. Even though this was my first date ever, I think it was completely different and memorable than any normal date."
What I'm sharing may not be as serious as many of the other stories I've seen, but one recent incident in particular has led me to think I should reach out to someone for advice. I'm a 24-year-old female that has just lost my job as a personal assistant to a mid-level executive in the fashion industry. My termination came so quickly I was unable to find another job in the same line of work before my rent came due. Desperation drove me to apply for a waitress job at a small family restaurant near my apartment. Despite having no prior history waiting tables, I got the job. I guess the owners were as desperate as I was at that moment. My first shift was on a Monday afternoon, and I soon came to realize I enjoyed the work. Most of the customers were regulars. They were very kind and understanding of my hiccups and tipped well. It didn't take long for me to catch on, and I was allowed to take as many shifts as I wanted. Before I knew it, I'd got my bills paid for the month and even had a little left over for a celebratory bottle of wine. As I write this, I've worked at the restaurant for 3 months and almost every minute on the clock has been a blast. Crazy, right? Yeah, I know it's not a sentence I'd ever expected to say when I agreed to take the job. At first, my intention was to stay only long enough to get another fashion-related job, but finding out I was good at the table waiting thing has greatly increased my self-esteem. Not to mention, the money is good. I can't say I had any complaints about the job until a few weeks ago. On a late Sunday evening, one of the regulars appeared to have formed a crush on me. I wasn't aware of it at the time, or even aware of him until I waited on him the following lunch shift. He had been on an extended vacation, and now that I've met him, I wish he would have stayed where he was. The customer in question is a 64-year-old gentleman who recently retired from the drilling industry. Not exactly my type, I must say, and a bit too old for me. My introduction to him wasn't any more strange than any of the other regulars. However, the way in which he stared at me the entire time made me nervous. Then he left me a $100 tip on a $6.50 tab. My initial reaction was one of joy, but as I dwelled upon it, I became uncomfortable with taking it. His return on that Thursday afternoon escalated my discomfort to an entire new level. I attempted to wait on him, as he was just another customer, but his reasons behind the massive tip soon became obvious. When I took his drink order, he asked me if I appreciated my large tip. This gave me the opportunity to tell him I wasn't comfortable taking a tip that large, but he interrupted me before I had the chance and hinted that I was now beholden to go on a date with him. The idea disarmed me. I wasn't sure that he meant what I thought, but just to be safe, I returned the $100 bill to him. The last thing I wanted to be seen as was some form of prostitute. When he was young, some women who waited tables may have sold themselves, but this girl is no whore. When I handed the bill back to him, a look of shock appeared on his face, soon followed by a big smile. All he could say was, "I've never seen a woman turn down a $100 bill. Now I see how it's gonna be." This reaction confused me. It was exactly the opposite of what I'd hoped for. I expected him to get mad, or at least get that I wasn't for sale. Him thinking I was playing hard to get scared me a little. However, I did consider that maybe I was perhaps misunderstanding what he meant. Our age gap could be making me misconstrue his intentions. It was possible he was only trying to show his appreciation for my services. For the remainder of his time in the restaurant that day, I said very little to him, and he met me with his usual fawning gaze. Once he left, a load of relief was lifted from my shoulders. It was short-lived, however, when I returned to the table and saw the $100 bill sitting there. This was beginning to look like some type of game he was playing with me. I had the impression that once I accepted that tip, I would be accepting of much more in his mind. This brings us up to a few days ago, when he was once again seated in my section. Before I could do anything, I had to make it clear that I could not accept that $100 tip. Once again, I handed it back to him and told him that I was in a long-term relationship and could not go out with him, even once. My speech didn't appear to make a dent in his facade. He replied by saying that he had no idea what I was talking about, but as he said it, a sly, childish grin was pasted on his face. I was starting to become angry at the way he was acting and stormed off to get his drink. By the time I made it back, something had very much changed in his demeanor. The usual doting and loving eyes had disappeared and been replaced by a simmering fury I would have never expected to come from him. His grin was no longer there. His face had become expressionless and cold. When I noticed this change, a jolt of fear shot through me. From that point, nothing else was said between us. One thing had not changed, however. When I returned to the table, the $100 bill was sitting there, but it was now joined by a small folded piece of paper. I unfolded it and saw that it was a brief handwritten note. It simply read, "It would benefit you to accept this." A shiver tore through me. I was almost positive he didn't intend this to be friendly. Although it wasn't necessarily threatening sounding, His attitude change gave me the impression it was a helpful hint. The entire predicament has made me confused and unsure of how to move forward. On one hand, the gentleman has not come out and clearly threatened me in any way. Up until our last interaction, he was nothing but happy and kind towards me. He also has never actually claimed to want to go on a date with me. As a matter of fact, he denied that this was his desire when I confronted him about it. To top it all off, I don't know one waitress who would dare turn down $100 tip and see it as anything other than a show of thanks for good service. When it comes to the change of personality, for all I am aware, something terrible could have occurred while I had gone getting his drink. It may have zero to do with me. On the other, however, his instance that I accept the large tip clearly makes me uncomfortable. He has to be able to see this. Continuing to insist I accept it should be a bad sign. The split-second change in his attitude after I told him I was not interested was more than likely connected, even if it was not. The speed at which he could become so different and the darkness of his eyes would certainly give anyone pause. As if it even needs to be said, putting the tip and the ominously written note together with the very unsettling interaction we had just had, I am of the almost 100% belief that I was being threatened. Nevertheless, even after writing this, I am completely at my wit's end and have no idea of how to proceed. This gentleman is a longtime customer of the restaurant, and up until a few days ago, I've had nothing but positive, if not slightly difficult, interactions with him. Since my grandparents had passed away before I was born, I've spent very little time with people of his age, and I'm afraid I have mistaken harmless flirting with that of a predator. Therefore, I put this to you. What action do you think I should take next? Am I being an oversensitive snowflake, or do you see trouble in my future? Any feedback will be taken into account and considered. I definitely wouldn't be putting myself out like this if I didn't feel I may be in trouble. I need help, and I need it now.